Well, Christmas is almost upon us, and as we enter into the month of December, I'm sure many of you are looking for a good Christmas devotional to work through this Advent. And so today we're going to look at the 5 top Christmas books for you to read this December. Okay, a couple of disclaimers before we begin. The first one is, even though I've called this top 5 Christmas books, they're not necessarily the top 5. They're not like the best 5 out there. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Who knows? But I'm not the one to suggest whether they are or not. And depending upon who you are and what you're looking for in a Christmas book this year, you might want to choose one of these books over the other. So that's the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is that I would be lying if I said that I've read every single one of these books in their entirety. In preparation for this video, I managed to borrow these books off a number of different people, but they all do come highly recommended, and in the past few days I've had a chance to scan through the most of them, well, all of them, to kind of get a grasp on what they're like. So hopefully this video will be helpful to you, regardless of who you are, as you seek to find the perfect Christmas book for you. So the first book we're going to look at is O Come, Let Us Adore Him by Paul Tripp. This is a book which I've heard a lot of good feedback on. Probably I've heard the most positive feedback about this book compared to all the other books. It might just be because this one's been out a little bit longer, but nonetheless it's got great reviews. And this is a book where Paul Tripp really invites you to step away from just the familiarity of the Christmas story and to once again be amazed by the wonder of the Christmas story. How's it structured? Well, each day really picks up a new theme that you see in the Christmas story and unpacks it a little bit, and then leads you to really meditate on it day by day. So for example, day 1, the theme is singing, thinking about the singing that the angels express and the joy that they express at the Christmas story, and so we're invited to do the same. Day 2, the theme is willingness. It talks about how Jesus was willing to come to this earth, which we ultimately remember at Christmas time, and how he was willing to come even though he knew where it was heading, death on a cross. Day 3 talks about promises, and so shows you how the Old Testament was pointing forward to this time when Jesus would come. And so that's kind of how the book's structured. It'll pick up on a new theme every single day and explore it a little bit more. You might notice as you read this devotional book that each day starts with a new kind of pithy statement or paragraph. That's because these are actually tweets that Paul Tripp tweeted a number of years ago. A number of years ago in the month of December, each day he tweeted a new statement or a little paragraph about the Christmas story, and that really served as the foundation for this book. And so each day at the beginning he'll tweet his tweet, he'll give you his tweet, and then he'll unpack it a little bit throughout the devotion. And so that really serves as the basis for each day. Something else that's quite cool about this book is that there's a little section at the end of each day for kids. And so if you're someone who wants to do family devotions, but you want your devotion to be at your level and your kids' devotion to be at their level, but for you both to be kind of studying the same thing, and this will be a great book for you, because at the end there's a little paragraph. It gives you a passage that you can read with your kids, and it gives you a few prompts as to how you can talk about the things in that passage with your kids, and so that's something to check out. In terms of size, it's a relatively small book. It's A5. Each devotion is about 2.5 pages, so it's very digestible, very easy, very accessible, and as I said before, there are 31 days or chapters in this, so it'll last you the entirety of December. And so that's the first book we're going to look at, O Come Let Us Adore Him by Paul Tripp. Okay, second book we'll look at then is Repeat the Sounding Joy by Christopher Ashe. You'll notice it's a very nice cover. That's something that's true of all the Christmas books, isn't it? They're very aesthetically pleasing. I don't know if the camera's focusing on that, if you can see it or not. If not, you can Google it. Repeat the Sounding Joy by Christopher Ashe. As you pick up this devotion, there'll be a couple of things that you'll immediately notice are a little bit different than the Paul Tripp book. Firstly, you can see in the front cover, these are daily Advent readings through Luke chapter 1 and 2. And so if you're someone who likes to read a devotion, probably like me, which goes through books of the Bible or sections of the Bible, then you might prefer this one over any of the other books on this list. So day 1, you'll really look at Luke chapter 1 verses 1 to 4. Day 2, you'll pick up from that and you'll go verse 5 to 7. And so each devotion is really structured in this way. It'll give you the passage to read. Then it'll give you a little devotion which focuses on a theme that emerges from the verses that you've just read. So for example, on day 1, when you're looking at chapter 1 verses 1 to 4, the devotion will pick up on the theme of certainty. Why? Because, well, Luke is writing in those first 4 verses, we're told, to a guy called Theophilus to make him certain about the things that he's seen and heard regarding Jesus, and so the devotion's on certainty. Day 2 picks up the story from verse 5 to 7 and it unpacks the theme of hope, which again is contained in those verses. And so each day then you are going through the book of Luke in those first 2 chapters, but the devotion will be centered on one theme that emerges from those 2 chapters. After the little devotion then in your book, there's a little section entitled Sing, and it'll give you actually a paragraph or a verse of a particular song or hymn. So if you're someone who likes to sing during your devotions, I don't know if people do that, maybe you do that, I'm not judging you. But if you're someone who likes to sing, during your devotions, or you like to meditate on the lyrics of a song, there'll be one provided for you that you can do, or maybe listen to it after you finish your devotion. There's also then a prayer, which will again lead you and prompt you as you pray in your devotion. And something else which is quite cool about this devotional book is there's, at the end of each section, a journal, so you can write down your own thoughts at the end of every devotion if that's something that you like to do. Again, the other difference about this book compared to the one that we just saw with Paul Tripp, it had 31 devotions, so it would last you the entirety of December. This one only has 24, so it'll take you right up to and including Christmas Eve. So that is Repeat the Sounding Joy by Christopher Ashe. Okay, book number 3. It's got a similar-ish looking cover to the one that we just saw, the Christopher Ashe book, but this one is a book edited by Nancy Guthrie, and it's called Come Thou Long Expected Jesus. And this book's a little bit different to the others, again in a different way, in that while this book is edited by Nancy Guthrie, each chapter is actually written by a different individual. So you've got some really well-known authors and pastors who write and contribute to the chapters of these books. So you've got the likes of John Piper, John MacArthur, Tim Keller, Charles Spurgeon, John Calvin, Alistair Begg. So this book has a little bit more variety in the devotions that it offers. The other thing that's different about this book, which you probably picked up on based on some of the names that I just said, is that these authors and pastors didn't write these devotions for the purposes of being included in this book. You probably picked that up because some of the guys that I just mentioned are long dead. Guys like John Calvin and Charles Spurgeon. And so what Nancy Guthrie has done as she edited this book is taken a collection of sermons and articles and extracts from their books and really put them together to form a cohesive devotional book, going through the Christmas story, picking up some beautiful, rich theological truths for us to meditate on, and she's done that really, really well in this little book right here. So if you're someone who maybe likes to read a book that has a little bit more variety in terms of the people who contribute to it, or maybe there's some people in there like John Calvin or Charles Spurgeon, you think, I haven't read any of their stuff, but I'd like a little taster of some of the things that they do, and this might be a good book for you to check out. Probably a little bit more theologically dense and more technical than the other books on the list, but that's no bad thing. It's still pretty accessible and will do your soul good as you seek to read these through Christmas. On this one there are only 22 chapters, so if you're someone who's maybe watching this video and it's like the 2nd of December and you think I'm too late, you can still pick up this book and you will still have it finished in time for Christmas Day. So that is Come Thou Long Expected Jesus by Nancy Guthrie. Okay, a bit of a disclaimer about the last 2 books. I did say that I was going to give you some devotional books for Advent readings. These last 2 books technically aren't really devotional books, but they are really good Christmas books that you could read devotionally, but they've got less chapters, they're not divided into specific days, but I think you'll like them and would benefit from reading them this Christmas. So the 4th book we're going to look at is this by Tim Keller called Hidden Christmas. So this is 8 chapters long, and it'll be super helpful for you if you're someone who wants to just meditate once again on the Christmas story. Each chapter is very readable, very accessible, and written really with true Keller fashion, which is not just intellectually stimulating, it's also really warm. And I think if you're someone who's just a Christian and you've kind of become familiar with the Christian story, you'll really enjoy this as Tim Keller really gives you some perspectives that you probably wouldn't have thought of or perhaps have forgotten. But also this book will be really good if you're a non-Christian or you want to recommend a Christian book to a non-Christian, or give it to a non-Christian friend as a bit of a gift. I think you would be hard pressed to beat this book because Keller's so good at giving a kind of apologetic edge to things, and he does it in a really, as we said, warm way. So I would check out this book, Hidden Christmas by Tim Keller. That's book number 4. And lastly, the last book I want to recommend today in our little top 5 list is this one by Alistair Begg called Christian Playlist. Christian Playlist. Again, not a devotional book, but a really good Christmas book. Why is it called Christmas Playlist? Well, it's because in this book, Alistair Begg examines the 4 songs of Christmas, or 4 of the songs that we see in the New Testament surrounding the Christmas story. So in chapter 1 we see Mary's song, chapter 2 we see Zachariah's song, in chapter 3 it's the angel's song, and in chapter 4 it's Simeon's song. And this book, as you can see, it's really small, it's really easy to read, it's really short, the shortest of all the books that we've seen today. And so if you're someone who kind of isn't really a big reader and you kind of think you would struggle to finish one of the other books, this might be the book for you. So it's really short, really helpful, only 4 chapters, and in each chapter again a theme is picked up on, or a question is asked really relating to the song that we read of. So in chapter 1, Mary's song, the question that's answered is, what is God like? In chapter 2, Zachariah's song, the question is, why do we need God? In chapter 3, the angel's song, the question is, how did God come? And then in chapter 4, Simeon's song, the question is, how did God do it? So again, great little book, gives you a nice perspective on the Christmas story, and I'm sure you or someone that you know will really enjoy this short little book. You probably could read it in one sitting if you left an hour or two, or a couple of sittings at the very most. So Alistair Begg, Christmas Playlist. So those are all the books that I'm going to recommend today in our top 5 Christmas books recommendations. Have you got another book that you would like to recommend and that you've enjoyed as part of your Christmas reading? If so, leave it in the comments, let others know so they can benefit from it too. Thank you.